Toolbar in Photoshop contains more than 20 of the most important tools. This video will simply help you go through all these tools. It is highly recommended spending some time on each one of them. It's not in the exact order of the toolbar in Photoshop. I have reorganized them to make it easier for the beginners. Let's begin. These two tools must be the most commonly used tools in Photoshop. Hand tool can help you move the entire canvas. It is such a frequent request that there are 3 shortcuts to do so. Don't drag this bar around, it's not efficient at all. 1. You can go to the toolbar, then use the hand tool, or use shortcut H to do so. 2. In most cases, when you want to use the hand tool, you are probably using other tools. You don't want to find the hand tool, then switch it back. You can just hold the spacebar to activate the hand tool. 3. And my personal favorite is using a multi-touch trackpad. You can use 2 fingers to move the canvas directly. If you hold the hand tool in the toolbar, there will be a rotate view tool. You can drag and rotate your canvas into any angle or hold shift to rotate 15 degrees every time. Also, you can just put in the rotation angle in the operation bar of your rotate view tool. Anytime you hit reset, your canvas will be back to normal. As always, a multi-touch trackpad will save you a lot. Just below the hand tool, we have the zoom tool. The shortcut is Z. It can zoom your canvas in and out. You can choose zoom in or zoom out, then click the canvas to zoom. When you are in zoom in, you can hold Option or Alt to switch to zoom out. One way around, when you are in zoom out, hold Option or Alt to switch to zoom in. Another easier way, for Mac, you can also try Command plus or Command minus. For PC, it's Control plus or Control minus. By default, when you are using Zoom tool, click and drag the mouse is to enlarging a certain area. But if you check the scrubby zoom, click and drag the mouse to the left will be zooming out, and drag to the right will be zooming in. Once again, I love trackpads better. And you can always right-click to choose a zoom option. Shortcuts for Mac are Command 1 for 100% view and Command 0 for fit on screen. For PC, it will be Control 1 and Control 0. Imagining yourself holding a painting and simply observing the painting from different positions doesn't make any changes to the painting itself. If you want to move layers, masks, or any other objects in Photoshop, you need to use the Move tool. Before moving anything, you will have to select the object first. The shortcut is V. The most precise and controllable way is to choose from the Layouts panel. You can click to select a single layer or a group and then move them around. Hold the Command or Control key. Allows you to select multiple layers at the same time. You can also select multiple layers in succession by holding the Shift key. Selecting the object directly from the canvas is also available. You can hold down Command or Control key and click to select an object, or hold down Shift at the same time to select multiple objects. And if the Auto Select is checked, you can select objects more conveniently. But dragging things around will be a little bit tricky. After selecting an object, besides click, then dragging things around, there are several techniques we have. Hold the Shift key to control your movement only in vertical or parallel directions. Hold the Option key while moving the layers. Photoshop will duplicate the layers for you. If you have 2 files open at the same time, you can also directly move the selected object to another file. A very useful tip here is that if 2 files have the same size, you can hold the Shift key Move the object and place it in the exact same position. Alignment. When you select multiple objects, you can use all the alignment arrangement tools in the option bar. In Photoshop, if you want to edit and adjust a certain area, you will have to make a selection. Marquee Tool is one of the most used tools in making selection. Without making a selection, you can only make adjustments to an entire layer. In most cases, this is not what you want. You can find the rectangular marquee tool in the toolbar. The shortcut is M. This way, you can frame an area you want to adjust. Then, you can use any of the other tools to make adjustments just for this certain area. When the area you want to select is not a rectangle, but an elliptical, you can use the elliptical marquee tool, which is just below the rectangular marquee tool. In this way, you can make a selection in the elliptical. Then edit the image in this elliptical selection. In some cases, you will use the single row or column marquee tool. All you need to do is select the single row marquee tool and click anywhere on the screen. This will select one row with a height of only 1 pixel. Or use the single column marquee tool. You can select one column with only 1 pixel wide. There are several options for the marquee tool. Add to selection and subtract from selection are two relatively commonly used functions when a certain area has been selected. You can use Add Selection by using the Add Selection tool. The shortcut is to hold the Shift key when making second selection. It doesn't matter if it's a rectangular or elliptical marquee tool you are using. The Subtract from Selection tool will help you minus certain selection from the original. The shortcut is to hold the Option key if it's a Mac, and Alt if it's a PC. In Option, there is a Style function. You can use it to lock the certain ratio when you're using marquee tools. Or use the certain size you want. Feather in Photoshop refers to soft edges. You can also make a feather selection. For example, I want to change the sky color of this image. It won't work if I just use rectangular marquee tool or any other marquee tool without making a feather selection. First, go to the option bar of the marquee tool. Input how much you want feather the selection. Then, you can use the marquee tool to make a rough selection where you want to change the color of the sky. Remember, you will have to make a selection 50% larger than how much you want to feather. Otherwise, the selection edges will not be visible. This soft-edged selection can help you edit the image better. This feather feature works on not only both rectangular and elliptical marquee tools, but also all the selection tools in Photoshop. All the tools that make selections can always work with these tips. 1. Hold Shift key can make your rectangular selection a perfect square. Also, hold Shift key can give you a perfect circular selection when you use the elliptical marquee tool. 2. When you already have a selection, hold the Option or Alt key can help you make a selection subtract from the old selection. If you start the first selection by holding Option or Alt key, you can make this selection from the center of the rectangular or elliptical. And if you hold Option or Alt key together with Shift key, you can make a square or circular selection from the center. 3. To move the selections, you can use the marquee tool and put your mouse into the selection, then click and move. It can move the whole selection to anywhere you want. 4. To cancel the selection, you can use Command D if it's a Mac or Control D if it's a PC. Remember, deselect will cancel all the selection at once. But if you accidentally cancel the selection, you can always go to Select and click Reselect. 5. And if you want to select everything except one thing, you can select the one thing first, then go to Select and click Inverse to inverse the selection. The shortcut is Command-I if it's a Mac or Control-I if it's a PC. To make a selection, Marquee Tool can be used in some simple situations, but in most cases, you'll need to use the slightly more complex Lasso Tool. There are 3 different Lasso Tools in the toolbar. 1. The basic Lasso Tool can be used to make a selection for a rough area. For example, I can use the basic Lasso Tool to select the mermaid in this picture and then use the content-aware fill. 2. The polygonal Lasso Tool is very suitable for making selections with straight borders. Like this picture, I can easily use the Polygonal Lasso Tool to make a selection of the sky. While using the Polygonal Lasso Tool, if you accidentally click on a wrong spot, you can press Backspace to delete the previous spot. You can also double-click the mouse to close the current selection. 3. The Magnetic Lasso Tool will automatically look for different colors in the image to identify boundaries and create a selection. You can start using the Magnetic Lasso Tool with one click and then move the mouse over a rough area. Let the Magnetic Lasso Tool automatically find the boundaries of objects and make selections. And if the Magnetic Lasso Tool does not find the object boundary you want very accurately, you can click Backspace to delete the previous spot and then click the mouse to forcibly add a selection spot. Tips. When you're using the basic Lasso Tool or the Polygonal Lasso Tool, you can switch between the two by holding the Option key. As artificial intelligence becomes more and more advanced, Object Selection Tool in Photoshop also grows more and more intelligent and easy to use as well. Object Selection Tool. You can choose Rectangle or Lasso mode in the option bar to directly select objects within a rough range. Photoshop will automatically analyze the image and make the selections for you. Of course, this tool is not perfect. You can continue to use the Object Selection Tool and hold Shift key to add an area which is unselected but needed, or hold Option or Alt key to subtract the selections you don't need. Once you check Object Finder in the option bar, Photoshop will highlight the objects you can directly select when your mouse passes over them. You only need one click to create the selection. Quick Selection Tool. For this tool, first you need to adjust a suitable brush a little bit. Then drag it on the area you want to select. Quick Selection Tool will analyze this area and make the selection for you. For pictures like this, it will be much easier to use the Magic Wand tool. You just need to set a suitable tolerance and click on the color you want to select. Even if the selection is far from perfect, you can always increase the selection with holding Shift key or reduce it with holding Option or Alt key. Sampling color is one of the most common things in Photoshop. You will use this Eyedropper tool often. The Eyedropper tool doesn't have many other options, and the shortcut is I. You can click on the screen to get the color of this exact pixel. Also, you can hold the mouse and show sampling ring to check the color. By default, you will sample the color of one pixel in this image. In a situation like this, the color you get will be a little bit jumpy. You can select another sample size in the only option bar of Eyedropper tool, so that you can get the average color of this area in the image. After sampling the color, you can always use this color on other tools such as brushes and so on. Color Sampler tool is basically a memo of Eyedropper tool. By this tool, you may also sample any color as you want, and Photoshop will help you record it in the info panel for you to use it later. In the Photoshop toolbar, the last and most important tool is to set the foreground and background color. There are two small color blocks here. The front one is to set foreground color, and the back one is to set background color. Click on the foreground color block will open a color picker panel where you can directly choose any color you want. You can also move the mouse out the panel into the image to pick a color from the image. After clicking Confirm, the foreground color will be set to the color you pick. The same method also applies to setting the background color. In addition, the foreground color can be set directly with the Eyedropper tool. After selecting the foreground color and background color, you can switch the foreground and background color by clicking this switch button or using the shortcut X. Here are two quick tips for using foreground and background color fills. After creating any selection, you can use Option plus Backspace if it's a Mac, or Alt plus Backspace if it's a PC to fill it with the foreground color. Or use Command plus Backspace if it's a Mac, or Control plus Backspace if it's a PC to fill color with the background color. You can also directly use these methods to fill the entire canvas with foreground color or background color without creating any selection. To switch to the default foreground color, which is black, and default background color, which is white, you can click this icon. You can also use the shortcut D. The chance of a completely solid color appearing is not that often. In Photoshop, it is very important to learn the use of the Gradient tool. Let us take a look at how to use the Gradient tool in the most basic way. The shortcut for this tool is G. For demonstration purposes, we set the foreground color and background color into two completely different colors. Then, you only need to use the Gradient tool to draw a line in the image, and Photoshop will create a gradient in the canvas based on your foreground color and background color. You can also set the gradient color you want in the option bar of Gradient tool. Setting gradient for more than two colors is also available. In the option bar of Gradient tool, there are several different gradient shapes for you to choose as well. There is also a paint bucket tool just under the Gradient tool, which you can see as a combined operation of Magic Selection tool plus Fill in Color. Select a foreground color, set Tolerance, and you can replace this color with any color you want. In Photoshop, we will always use the Clone Stamp tool to fix images. Let's understand the principle of this tool first. Select Clone Stamp tool on the menu or use the shortcut S. You can find that this tool does not work by only clicking around. You need to set your brush a little bit. Then hold the Option or Alt key and click on an area to define a source point first. Then click on anywhere else to clone. Let's try again. Hold down the Option or Alt key, click to define a source point, and then click somewhere again to clone. This simple tool is always used in the following two situations. 1. To clone an object. For example, first hold the Option or Alt key, click on this red car as a source point, and then click to clone one more red car on the road. But to clone this black car, you will find that the car is a little too small due to perspective view. You can open the Clone Source panel and increase the size of the clone here, which will make the result more realistic. Also in the Clone Source panel, we can select the horizontal mirroring and then use the Clone Stamp tool to fix the problem of this image. 2. You can also use the Clone Stamp tool to remove objects. Take this picture as an example if you want to remove this number 2. First hold the Option or Alt key and click the area next to it. Then move the mouse over the number 2, align it with the horizontal stripes on the garage, and then click and apply the clone to cover the number 2. You can even use the Clone Stamp tool to cover this person. Another tip here. Clone Stamp tool can be used not only on the current file. You can also hold the Option or Alt key to define a source point in one file, and then use the Clone Stamp tool in another file. In Photoshop, Spot Healing tool is always used to fix the images. After all, not all images are perfect. Here are 4 common modes of Spot Healing tools. First, Spot Healing Brush tool. This tool is very helpful, especially in fixing blemishes of portraits. Select the Spot Healing Brush tool. The shortcut is J. First, adjust the brush slightly. Then click on the blemished areas of the skin. Photoshop will analyze the area you clicked, find flaws, and cover it. Healing Brush tool. This tool is very similar to the Clone Stamp tool, but Photoshop makes it a little smarter. Let's review the Clone Stamp tool first. Hold Option or Alt key to define a source point, and then click on another place to clone the object. But the Clone Stamp tool will only clone from the source point directly. In this case, because the source point is relatively bright, it will be too bright when you clone to a darker area. But if you use the Healing Brush tool instead, hold Option or Alt key to define a source point and then click again to patch here. Photoshop will not only patch the content from the source point, but also adjust it according to the target area to make the picture more perfect. Healing Brush tool is also very useful for fixing skin imperfections and blemishes. Next, Patch tool. There are 2 ways to use the Patch tool. 1. Select Source in the option bar. Then make a selection that needs to be patched first. Then drag this selection to the source point, and the Patch tool will patch this area with the contents from the source point. 2. If you choose Destination mode, you need to make a selection of the source point first, and then drag the selection to the area that needs to be patched. Content-Aware Move tool. Finally, the Content-Aware Move tool also has 2 modes. In Move mode, make a selection of the object you want to move first. Then, move it to somewhere else, pressing Enter or double-click to apply. In Extend mode, the Content-Aware Move tool will duplicate the object for you. Remember, changing the size of the content before applying the Move or Extend is always available in Content-Aware Move tool. The Blur tool and Sharpen tool are very effective at controlling the focus of an image, allowing you to manipulate the viewer's focus easily. The Blur tool and Sharpen tool are simple. Select the Blur tool or Sharpen tool and adjust the brush and strength a little bit. Then you just need to brush this tool around the image to apply the blur or sharpen. Let's example this picture for a comparison. Apply the Blur tool on the left and the Sharpen tool on the right, leaving the middle ground original. The differences between the 3 are not that obvious, but it can be very useful in certain situations. Use Blur tool and Sharpen tool to control the focus, like if we want to control the focus point on this horse. First, apply the Blur tool on the nearby plants to make this area more blurry. Then apply the Sharpen tool on the horse's eye to make it stand out a little bit more. Or if you want this picture more into a macro photography, apply the Blur tool on the both ends of the card to make it out of focus. And then the Sharpen tool on the spades, part a little bit to add some more focus. In Photoshop, mastering the Dodge tool and Burn tool can help you adjust the light and dark in a precise area of the picture. The Dodge tool and Burn tool are also simple to use. The shortcut is O. Select the Dodge tool or Burn tool and adjust the brush and exposure a little bit. Then you just need to brush this tool around to make the image brighter or darker. And the range in the option bar of these two tools can make a big difference. You can use Dodge tool and set range in shadows. This way, your Dodge tool will focus on the dark parts of the image. Also, if you use Burn tool and set range in highlight, your Burn tool will focus on darkening the highlights. Dodge tool and Burn tool are the easiest tools to apply the brightness and darkness. It is highly recommended that you practice using these two tools a little bit more. Brush tool is a very basic tool in Photoshop, but it can be used with many other Photoshop features. So it's very important to understand all the methods of the brush tool. Don't think that the brush tool can only be used for painting lines of different colors. I have listed all the commonly used modes of brush tool and displayed them in one image so that everyone can see the difference more easily. The most basic, you can use the brush tool to paint a line. But if you hold the Shift key, you can control your brush to vertical or horizontal only. You can also one-click on the image and then hold the Shift key click elsewhere to make a straight line. You can adjust the brush size in the option bar of Brush tool, or by pressing the square brackets on the keyboard to change the size for your brush. Adjusting the hardness of the brush can make you brush with feathered edges. In the Mode option of Brush tool, there are different overlay modes for you to use. Just remember to apply the brush on the certain layer. Changing opacity allows your brush to draw with different opacity. And smoothing can make your brush lines flow more smoothly. The smaller the flow can make more pronounced, the gradient at the edge of the brush will be like this. In the Brush tool option, you can also adjust the shape of the brush. And you can also adjust the angle of it. Photoshop has also thoughtfully prepared many different styles of brush for us. The last symmetry function is not commonly used, but it is very efficient when you need to design some patterns. Here are all the different ways to use the brush tool. If you are a Photoshop beginner, it is recommended that everyone feel free to try it. In Photoshop, History Brush tool can help you undo something in a certain area. The shortcut of History Brush tool is Y. Let me show you how this tool works with an example. Like this tiger photograph, I make it black and white and change the contrast, but accidentally removed its eyes. History Brush tool can fix this. You only need to apply the History Brush tool on the area which needs to be undone. Notice in the History panel, you need to mark this icon to the step you need to undo so that you can keep the steps you want and only undo some of the wrong steps. Just below the History Brush tool, there is an Art History Brush tool. You can set this tool into different styles and just brush around to apply these styles into your image. Eraser tool in Photoshop is a very handy tool. In many cases, it can simplify the two steps of selecting plus deleting into one step. The shortcut for Eraser tool is E. The way you use this tool is very similar to the Brush tool. You only need to adjust the brush slightly and then brush around to erase the areas. But the Eraser tool will also erase the areas you might need. Background Eraser tool is a bit smarter. This tool analyzes the area you brush and automatically erases the parts of the background you may not need. It is especially for pictures with a large contrast between the background and the object. Magic Eraser tool is more helpful for images with large areas of color. Like this picture, the Magic Eraser tool will automatically select and delete all parts of the sky, leaving the eagle alone. In Photoshop, there are tools that allow you to create all kinds of vector graphics. These vector graphics are not only used for layout and design, but can also be used for making masks and other purposes. First, let's understand the concept of vector graphics. For example, we use the Ellipse tool and elliptical Marquee tool to make two circles. It seems like there is no difference between the two. But if you make these two circles much bigger with the free Transform tool, you will find that the vector one by Ellipse tool is still sharp and clear. But the circle by elliptical Marquee tool is very blurry and unclear. That's because the vector graphics produced by Ellipse tool are made by Photoshop through data calculation. No matter how many times it is zoomed in or out, it will always remain sharp and clear. One more example here. Let's use the Rectangle tool to make a rectangle, and then make the corners into 4 rounded corners. Then we use the Selection tool to make an identical, non-vector graphic. Let's see what will happen if these two graphics are pulled a lot longer. The corners of the Rectangle tool one are still perfect, but the one made with the Selection tool has been completely deformed. This is also because the rounded corners by the Rectangle tool are also created by Photoshop through data calculation. No matter its clarity, to changing colors or changing shapes, graphics and vectors will have more advantages. I will help you guys go through all their applications in detail in future videos. In this video, let's briefly go through how to use the Rectangle tool first. Basic Rectangle tool is very similar to the rectangular Marquee tool. You can click and drag to create a rectangle, or you can hold Shift to make a perfect square one. And if you use this tool by holding the Option or Alt key, you can create this rectangular from the center. After you created the rectangle, in the option bar, you can continue to change the color, stroke, etc. of it. When using the Rectangle tool, you will find 4 small dots on each corner of it. These small dots are used to control the rounded corners of this rectangle. You only need to drag this small dot to create rounded corners. Of course, you can also deselect the Fixed Ratio here through the Properties panel. Then adjust the corner individually. In the Masks option of the Properties panel, there are more applications that can make your vector graphics much useful. I will introduce these more complex functions in future videos. The Ellipse tool, Triangle tool, Polygon tool, Line tool, and Custom Shape tool are basically the same as the Rectangle tool. They all have the advantages of vector graphics, and different parameters can be adjusted in the Properties panel as well. In Photoshop, to illustrate any complex graphics, you will need to use the Pen tool. This is an indispensable tool. This video will show you the most basic use of the Pen tool. The shortcut for Pen tool is P. You only need to single-click on any 2 points on the canvas, and Pen tool will create a straight line for you. Of course, you can also change the stroke and style of this line in the option bar. By holding the Shift key, the Pen tool will create a perfectly horizontal line, or a perfectly vertical line for you, if you hold and drag while using the Pen tool. This tool will appear with a control bar and create a curve base on it. Continue dragging and you can adjust the curve with this control bar, or you can drag to create a control bar when start using the Pen tool, and then create any shape or curve by clicking and dragging continuously. When you use the Pen tool to create any shape or line, if you return the line back to the starting point, a little dot will appear on. This way you create a closed shape. This shape can be adjusted to any color and any style in the option bar. If you are master in using the Pen tool, you can create any icons or graphics with this tool, even some more complex illustrations. Second, Freeform Pen tool. Freeform Pen tool doesn't have any tips. You only need to hold the mouse and move around to create graphics. But to create more accurate graphics, it is recommended to use more professional tools such as a hand-drawn tablet. Curvature Pen tool. This tool is also a very easy-to-use pen tool. The only thing you need to do is to click on different spots on the canvas, and the Curvature pen tool will automatically make the curve based on the spots you point. You can adjust the curve a little bit by dragging these spots around. To adjust the shapes created by these pen tools, you will need some more precise tips and tools. All the vector graphics created by the pen tools and rectangle tools can be modified by adjusting the anchor point and control bar. Through the Add Anchor Point tool and Delete Anchor Point tool, you can add or delete anchor points on these graphics. You can even use the Convert Point tool to drag the anchor point and control bar to adjust the graphics as well. Mastering these pen tools can help you create any graphics you want. You can also adjust the image more precisely with a mask by creating some graphics with these pen tools. We will talk about these in the future videos. In Photoshop, Path Selection Tool and Direct Selection Tool are specially used to edit the vector graphics, which means any graphics created by Rectangle Tool and Pen Tool will require the use of these two tools for editing. The shortcut for Path Selection Tool is A. As an example, we use Rectangle Tool and Pen Tool to create some vector graphics, and then use a non-vector selection tool to create a yellow rectangle on a new layer. The basic move tools can move all these layers and graphics, of course, but if you use the Path Selection Tool, you cannot move or edit this yellow shape created by the Selection Tool. Path Selection Tool can only allow you to target these vector graphics, which are composed of path. After selecting these graphics, you can move them around or freeform transform their sizes and shapes. Direct Selection Tool can further edit these graphics by dragging the anchor point or the curve control bar. Crop Tool is one of the most commonly used tools in Photoshop. It also has two special methods that can help you a lot. 1. Basic Crop Tool. Select Crop Tool in the toolbar, and the shortcut is C. In the option bar of Crop Tool, you can choose to use Crop Tool with a fixed ratio. And you can also use the Crop Tool with specific size and resolutions. Notice, if you are using Crop Tool for a JPG file, and you still need to continue saving as a JPG file later, make sure to select Delete Cropped Pixels. If you do not select Delete Cropped Pixels, the cropped part will still be retained in the canvas. At this time, Photoshop will save the file as a PSD file by default. 2. There is also a Straighten tool in the option bar of Crop Tool, which is also very useful. For example, in this picture, the horizon of the picture is slightly tilted. If we use the basic Crop Tool, we need to rotate the angle to align the horizontal line and then crop. And if you use the Straighten tool, you just need to draw a line in the horizontal part of the picture. Then Photoshop will automatically align the horizontal lines and help us crop the image. There is also a Perspective Crop tool below the basic Crop tool. A picture like this has a certain perspective. We can use the Perspective Crop tool and select the side of the building with this tool. Then you will get a perfect front view of the building. In Photoshop, Slice tool is a quick tool that can quickly slice an entire image into multiple images. Slice tool is under the Crop tool. The shortcut is also C. Taking this landscape as an example, if I want to slice the image into 3 square images arranged like this. Using the basic Crop tool can be a pain in the ass. And we only need to use the Slice tool and set the ratio to a fixed 1.1 in the option bar. Then just use the Slice tool to make 3 square slices wherever you need. Then go to Top Menu, File, Export, and find Save for Web. In this panel, select the 3 slices that you want to export and click Save. Use selected slices in the Slices option. This way you can get 3 perfect sliced images. Although Frame tool in Photoshop is not so commonly used, it also has its unique advantages. Today, I will show you how to use the Frame tool and something special about this tool. Using the Frame tool is very simple. The shortcut is K. You only need to select the rectangular or elliptical of the Frame tool and make a frame wherever you need. After that, you can drag an image into the frame or go to Top Menu, File, find Place Embedded or Place Linked. Choose the image you want to frame, and the image shows. The special thing is if you use Place Linked to import an image. In this situation, any changes you make to the original image will change the images in the frame as well. In Photoshop, the Type tool allows you to make all kinds of text for your image. The horizontal type tool and the vertical type tool are basically the same. The shortcut is T. All you need to do is to use the tool click anywhere on the canvas. Then you just type. In the Layers panel, Type tool will create a text layer for you. You can move this type layer anywhere you want, or change the typeface, font size in the option bar. Also in the Type panel, leading, kerning, and all kinds of paragraph alignments are always there for you to set. When using the Type tool, if you click and drag a selection, you can copy and paste paragraphs into this selection more conveniently. Within this selection, text will wrap automatically. All the editing, text wrapping, and deleting are always available. The vertical type tool is basically the same as horizontal type tool, only it creates the text vertically. Horizontal type mask tool and vertical type mask tool allow you to automatically create a selection after creating the text. Personal point of view, these are not very commonly used tools. The toolbar in Photoshop includes the Ruler tool, Note tool, and Count tool. These 3 tools will not change your image in the end, but they will help you a lot in many cases. Just under the Eyedropper tool, there is a Ruler tool. Like this image, if you want to know how long this rope is, you can draw a straight line with the Ruler tool. Then the position, length, angle, and other information in the option bar will be for you to check. Of course, you can also continue to use the Straighten layer to align the image and canvas. Then there is the Note tool. There must be many times when you need to note some information on the image. You can create a note at any location you want on the image and write down the note. The Count tool is also very simple to use. Just keep clicking and this tool will automatically count for you. You can also create multiple groups to count different objects, and adjusting the color and size of the numbers will make things easier. Congratulations! You have finished the most basic use of these tools. Next, I will continue to go through other Photoshop functions with you guys in the most simple way. Thanks for watching. I hope you can support this channel and subscribe.